Yeah, I got rules now. From Vegan Man.
All right, so welcome into Conversations Ventilation. And before we hit record, I have to let the internet know that I had a black bean and avocado burger for lunch in front of the hockey squad, I guess is what you call them, a 50 and over hockey squad. And I have been catching nothing but shit since
Vegan Man.
Vegan Man.
Vegan Man.
And so every once in a while during lunch, someone would have a remark about my vegan. It's not a vegan burger.
Well, you're eating curd. You're
right.
a curd man then.
A curd man. So
rhymes with turd.
Rhymes with turd. So I don't recommend eating the black bean and avocado burger from Drake's if you're in front of anyone who you
who likes meat.
Who likes meat. All right, let's get serious. All right, before we get started here today and introduce who we've got today, we're going to send this one out. The passing of Lafayette, Indiana Fire Sergeant John Robinson. He passed away. Let's see. He's had a nearly 30-year career, survived by his wife Melissa and daughters Ava and Reese. So he passed away on duty, in the line of duty. So we're going to send this one out to him, crack a beer for him, and take a swig. All right. So Lafayette, Indiana, Fire Sergeant John Robinson. Photo is on the screen for you YouTube listeners and viewers and everyone else. You just have to take my word for it. All right. So today we have, we paid the tariffs to Elon Musk to get this guy shipped down from Canada. And Troy, Vegan Burger Seibel. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
You just did, minus the vegan burger thing. Is like you're the curd man.
Troy, I don't eat meat. Seibel, ex-professional hockey player. We got to throw that in. Played for how many years?
Well, I played for a number of years. I left home at 16.
Left home at 16.
Yeah.
You're from Canada. Go ahead and tell them.
I'm from Canada, proud Canadian. Yeah.
It's kind of Calgary, but it's not. It's Red Deer.
Yeah, Red Deer. So it's just
we fly into Calgary, and then it's a short little drive.
Hour and a half drive. So basically, I lived right above Montana.
Yep. Do you claim Calgary, or is it more of a Red Deer ride or die?
I just claim Canada.
Okay.
So it's not really
yeah, we know.
My parents still live up there. But yeah.
Okay. Hi to your parents.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Mary.
Let me tell you something about his parents. If you think this guy's a pain in the ass, boy, they're not a pain in the ass. They're lovely people, but they will ride you. Boy, you throw the wrong card down when you're playing cards, mom will get on you.
And thus she should.
So it's not.
There's rules.
There's rules. I'm gonna give 50% of why you are the way you are is not your fault. It was taught. Okay.
So I get it honestly.
You get it honestly. Okay. So we're here today. He's been, he's been retired now for what, 12 months, 13 months?
Yeah, 14, 15 months over there, yeah.
So 25-year career. We get credit for 30 here in Alabama. We get it every 5 years we work. We get an extra year for hazard pay. So we have a 30-year pension. And you've been growing the beard for a year.
Yeah, you'd think it'd be longer, right? But
well, I heard your wife won't let it be any longer.
Yeah. Okay.
Hi, Dawn.
Hey, Dawn.
Hit like. I know she knows this. We all know that Dawn told you to trim it because my beard is not going to be trimmed. I'm gonna let it go. I have 3 years to go.
But then you're gonna have to cut all that. Because you're gonna have that bean curd that's gonna be growing through your beard. You have weeds coming out
because it's on top of the. It's a very good
vegan man.
It's not. No. It'll be longer. I'm gonna grow. My goal is to have a beard longer than you, and I know Don is not going to let you keep up with me with the beard once I'm allowed to grow it in 3 years. But so here. We'll get into the title of this episode. If you've already looked, it's called Becoming a Who. We have already determined that. Sitting in Breckenridge this winter on a ski trip, drinking some beers, we realized you were already a who. You want to tell them what a who is?
Yeah. So you're thinking, what are they talking about? What's a who? It's like, and it was relatively shorter than the 15 months or whatever I've been retired. But you go back to the station and you know, your seat's been filled, and plus, you know, other people have come in, and when you get introduced by somebody who actually still knows you, they're introducing, and the kids or the younger firefighters, it's like their automatic question is who?
Yeah.
Who? Yeah. So I'm falling into that category. You know, I'm retired. I'm a retired who now.
Yeah. No. And we had a pretty good laugh sitting in the hot tub about it, because it only took, well, that was what, 3 months ago. So it was less than a year.
Yeah.
To become a who. Because what, you know, I think every department has, you know, a high turnover rate. There's a lot of kids coming in, a lot of people move, you know, retiring. It's a constant revolving door. And these kids, for me, they seem like they're getting younger. So when you're sitting next to a 20-year-old kid who wasn't even born when we went to recruit school, you know, and they're like, well, Troy Seibel, who? This kid doesn't have a clue.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, and so it makes you wonder, it's like, did you really have any, you know, impact, or did you have any real, did you leave behind anything, you know? And it's in a lot of ways that's sad.
Well, you left behind a few things like policy changes. We're not going to get it too deep into how he affected our policies, but if you know, you know.
If you know, you know, and if you don't, that's okay too. And it's probably better.
It's probably yeah. So Lieutenant here had a 25-year career, and in less than a year, let's just say, you became a who. And not to everyone, obviously, but you slowly, as the years go on, you slowly become a who. You know, I'm 3 years from retirement. I'm looking at, you know, some of my good friends that I've worked a long time with retiring or getting ready to retire. And it's like, God, we're in the old guy group now. And we were talking about that earlier, about how, you know, the old guys, I think, need to take more role in coming back. We were talking about, you know, the brotherhood of should almost be kind of led by the older and retired guys, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I don't see, well, before we get too far into this, I think first off, we might want to say, so not all opinions can be expressed here during the show, or necessarily that or the CIV podcast.
For those of you who know Troy, he has a few opinions. We're not going to talk about some of them.
No.
We're going to talk about what it's like being retired and how we can, you know, go forward and improve that side. You know, the 3 tiers in the CIV, we'll throw that up on the screen real quick. The 9,125 days and beyond is the retirement, where he's at, where I will be soon, is another pillar in the whole aspect of what we do. And I think, and we've talked about this, is that there's a lot of responsibility on guys like you to continue to come back and be a part of what we're doing at the station. And we don't have that.
No.
As much as, you know, there's a few, very, very few.
Yeah, and it's different. One other thing I want to add for everybody out there is, like, I mean, for what Shemik's doing here and the CIV and everything, that, I mean, this is so beneficial and it's so needed, and it's so, you know, and the guy you'd pick to lead it would not, in my view, would have been Shemik. You know, he's lazy and you know, he's out of touch a lot of times, but I mean, but he had a call, and he had this desire to see that, you know, to make, you know, to have conversations
lazy.
where, yeah, that was your words.
Yeah.
But to have this desire to have these conversations, to encourage, or to, you know, help people, you know, because in our job, in my past job, but in that environment, we see a lot of things, and we experience a lot of things that, I'm glad from my point of view that I got to do it, so other people didn't have to do it, or didn't have to see it, or didn't have to be a part of it. But still, I don't think you're not human if it doesn't affect you. You're not human if you don't go home and cry, or shed a tear, because we're not called when people are having a good day. We're called when people are having a bad day and a bad experience, and we're there to help alleviate that. But during that alleviation process, we're witnessing and we're seeing, like, real life stuff and real heartbreaking stuff and just stuff that
And that's one of the reasons things we're doing like with the new recruits is just opening that door right away and explaining that what, because like I've said a few times and say a million more times is that I didn't realize I'd ever go to a hanging, something simple like that. And when it happens, it caught me off guard right away. And to whereas, it, yeah.
and I think too is like, especially, it's a little bit generational, but when I was growing up, or what I was taught is like, real men don't cry, or real men don't show their emotions, or real men don't. And then that is so untrue. It's like, you cannot be. I think real men are the ones that become vulnerable or make themselves vulnerable or open up. And because if you're not vulnerable, then what are you saying that to? Especially if you're a leader, if you're somebody leading somebody, and you're not willing to be vulnerable, you're not able to show your emotions or your soft side, then what are the people going to learn from that? So I think that we have to have the ability to to get rid of that stigma of what a real man is and what a real man should be. And because I tell my kids all the time I love them, or I hug my kids, I show emotion to my kids, and what we want to call, or what we I think we've gotten away from, and what it should go back to is that your family's, your crew is your family in a lot of ways. I mean, you spend a third of your life with those people, so they should be, they should become a part of your extended family.
And that ties in with blue shirts get blue shirts. That ties in what we're doing here. That ties in with, the younger guys who are just coming into this career are seeing the older guys talking. And that's another reason why the retired guys, I feel, need to be a part of part of the team, on the team, because they need to see guys that did 25 years here with gray beards hanging out, drinking coffee, coming by the station, being a part of the team. We talked about that earlier about how, for 25 years you're on the team, and then all of a sudden we'd say, if we like you, we give you an axe and maybe a shrimp boil, and then we kick you out the door. 99% of the time, you never see you again.
And not everybody gets an axe.
Not everybody gets an axe.
Yeah. So, and I mean, some people have been forgotten about, and that's sad too, and we laugh about that, but it's sad because, that was a fundamental thing, is like when you retire, it's just something, it was something that was given to you that is not a reward, but something that, that, hey, listen, you mattered, we appreciate you. We're still going to appreciate you, and come back anytime.
Yeah. I think, I don't think you should ever be off the team. I think you should be, we talked about earlier when we were just shooting the shit about how if the pride for the retired guys is like, I was a Decatur fireman, and I still am a Decatur fireman, and I wear the shirt, or I, with pride, and I stop in, and I'm excited to meet the new guys and walk up and go, hey, my name is Chris Shimmick. Someday they'll be like, who are you? I'll be a who. And, just coming into the stations and having coffee or having lunch and just being a part of the team. And, you don't come out of the station as much as you should. Well, throw you under the bus a little bit.
Yeah, throw me under the bus.
Well, throw you under the bus.
I think that it's like a team thing, and I don't think you should be off the team. But I mean, and if we look at it from a sports perspective and stuff like that, it's not that you're off the team; it's just your role is going to change. You're going to play a different role, and we see that. It's like I was my profession at a time was hockey, and the older you got, you went from the first line to the second line to the third line to the coaching staff to the training staff or whatever, but you still played a role, you still played a part. Yeah. And, and then even when you could go into coaching the youth or whatever, but you still had an impact in your thing. And I think it could be good, or would be good, to still have an impact with,
I think it's needed.
Well, absolutely. But how do you do that?
By talking about it first, maybe pointing out, going, hey, let's do a better job. Number one. Number two, I think we got to encourage people like you and me in 3 years to continue to be a part of the team. My role will change, but I think there's always going to be a new first responder on day one, sitting there glassy eyed, ready to go. They're going to need, senior firemen and people, we're hopefully changing all that now by continuing to have better conversations. So when they're there for the first 4 or 5 months, they're hearing people having these conversations. So they just learn this is what we do, simple things like that. And they're going to no different when you go stop by and have coffee and lunch and they set you a place at the table and they sit around and listen to you tell stories during lunch. They're like, well, this is just what we do. So in 20 or 5 years when they retire, that's what, it'll build momentum if we continue make these little changes.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's what I'm doing and poking the bear a little bit. And we're trying to, I don't know.
Well, I mean, let's establish or work out what that role is. And I think that starts within the department to, I mean, I hadn't been retired that long, and I was nervous going back to the station. I didn't feel like I would be welcome back to the station. Or I didn't feel like, it was like, and since that time, and I think what we got away from it is like, we're not allowed to have characters anymore. When I was growing up in the fire department, we had character. We had guys named like Fishhead or Yankee or Puddin' or even Booger. We had these people, and they were characters, and they're allowed to be characters because. And as I reflect, and this is an opinion thing, we're getting onto this opinion thing, but
this is all opinions,
yeah,
obviously.
But we're getting onto this, and I think we've the culture's changed, and we've left, and as I reflected back on my career, and what's changed is that, well, I didn't know it at the time, but throughout my whole career, I had one leader as a chief. I had one leader, and he was actually my first one, and the difference between him and it went from there to managing and micromanaging, and it was Bo Lewis was the name was his name at the time, and he wanted to give out authority, and he wanted to encourage people to be a personality, to be a person, so that that they're recognized and they're talked about, and so when a Sam Kirby comes into the station, it doesn't matter all the busy work or whatever you had planned for that day. You stop because you knew how valuable it was for your crew to sit down and just talk with that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And Byron Terry had more influence on my career than anybody else. And he,
hey, Byron,
hey,
I know you're watching.
And he was that natural leader where, he didn't want to be in that position. He was put in that position. He didn't want, he didn't want that authority. He wanted to, to get it out, and he was still a boss, but the thing was he had what I would call grace and humility and forgiveness. He'd come here, and if he needed to correct you, he'd correct you. But then he would also pick you up, dust you back off, and give you a big hug and put you on your way. And it's like, now we just got these minions walking around, and they're giving away what at my department was called coaching forms.
Yep.
And then they have a 1-800 rat your buddy out line, and we call this a brotherhood, but we have a 1-800 rat your buddy out, or we have these guys that are they're superseding even the lieutenant's position and going in and looking for reasons to write you up. So, in my opinion, it's just so that they can get you to conform to what they think it is, and I think until that can be adjusted, where somebody like a Byron Terry comes into the station, or a Greg Heatherly, I think he's just recently retired, and that's a guy that I'd follow anywhere, because he's just a leader. People want to be, and I think his personality was like, he would tell you if you did wrong, he'd dust you off, give you a hug, and have that grace and that forgiveness, and not look for reasons to get you to conform by throwing out, so in other words, when I left, it was like you were going to conform, whether it was willingly or we're gonna process it. And then I can go on. We can look at even how we do you're ready to pull me in here, so go ahead.
I just thinking about how the policies you've changed because of someday they're gonna be like, this is because Troy Seibel worked here. This is why you have to.
I wish I had that kind of impact.
Why you're being written up right now. You can't untuck your shirt because Troy Seibel used to complain about. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, it all comes down to the brotherhood we talk about. It's a key word we use all the time, and I think it. Like you're saying, it has to be managed, and it has to be kind of protected in a way where the old guys need to make sure we don't have our heads too far up our own ass. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we want these young kids to come in and respect people like you when you walk in, to go, you know what, sir, great to meet you. Let me go make a pot of coffee and let's tell some butt jokes. You know what I mean? Like, I want to hear what this guy has to say. Because even though he may be a who walking through the door, but when you leave in an hour after lunch and a pot of coffee, they should be like, no, Troy Seibel, he's pretty cool. Like when he worked here, way back in the 80s, or, but
Thanks.
It's not the 80s, but you know what I'm saying? Like, it has to be, I don't know. I just think we need to make more attention to it. Number one, we got to get rid of that 1-800 number. I hate that shit. The fact that people can rat each other out. This is absolutely,
that blows my mind that,
anonymously rat each other out.
But you still call it a brotherhood. How can you call it a brotherhood if you got a 1-800 rat your buddy out?
There's no way. First off, if you're listening, that we have to get rid of that. This is ridiculous. If there's a problem, it's called a chain of command. We work through the things, put the power back and let the lieutenants lead. Let these crews lead.
And that you bring up. Let the lieutenants lead.
Let the lieutenants lead. Let these senior firemen be good senior firemen. Let's have better conversations. Let's show these new first responders on what's expected. How do we act? We don't look for a reason to rat Shimmick out because his shirt's untucked.
Or you're wearing gym shorts.
Or I'm wearing gym shorts.
Heaven forbid you're wearing gym shorts around the station.
Because it might notch you up a little bit on the promotional scale. No, this is about.
Oh, don't even start.
Don't even start.
Don't even start with promotional.
But the brotherhood, I think, has to be the senior retired guys, in my opinion, have to be involved in order for the brotherhood to remain a positive, solid thing. I think if not, it's going to crumble. I really do. I think it's going to turn into a job. And people are going to be coaching forums written up, ratting each other out anonymously on a 1-800 number, which is complete bullshit. And we're going to get away from the fact that this guy used to go into a fire with me when we worked, together.
Right.
And when the shit's hitting the fan, I have to count on him. He has to count on me. We have to know that we're going to do the right thing. We're going to we're going to go all in. We're not, there's all these things that are just kind of expected when things are happening. It doesn't need to be about some little petty shit.
Yeah. And,
and you need to come back to the station and remind us of that.
And I think, one thing too is like that I see that we gotten away from is when we see the things that we do and when we experience the thing, one of the things that we did and this, one of the stories, Sean Chandler's full of these stories or Danny Little but one of the way we had releases is we were allowed to have fun at the station. I remember tying beds up in the rafters or, throwing stink bombs or smoke bombs. And all that's going to get you now as a coaching forum is you're going to get written up. You're not allowed to, and that as much as conversation has allowed you to have a release.
It's kind of a team building exercise is when you get picked on.
Yeah.
When you come into work and your bed is up in the rafters, you're like, okay, guys, that's because we like you. Or if you're getting picked on, just like when you eat a black bean and avocado burger after hockey, it's because, I'm part of the team. We're getting picked on. It's fun. And, we don't want to lose that in the fire service because when the tones go off and we all know, we all go to work.
Yeah.
And it can go from
programmed that way.
It can be jackassing around to 100% serious in the matter of you walking to the truck. It's game on. And that's when it's time to work and we count on each other and
and like you said, it's a team building thing and it brings unity to your squad. And when you bring unity to your squad, I know that, hey, listen, Inch and Six is coming. We want them to be there. We're looking forward to them. They're of a tight unit crew and they work as a union and where we're not, going off into four corners because we're worried about, if we do something and it's out of line, is 1-800 rat your buddy out, or
you might change
some little minion that's from the administration is going to come and write you up with a coaching form. It's like, where's the grace? Where's the forgiveness? Where's the pat on the back? Hey, listen, you know what? That use that as a learning experience. You didn't. That's not exactly how you did, but this is what you should have done. And going forward, this is what you're doing. And encourage the person, not put them scared to death that if they get outside the bounds or they get outside this norm, the new norm, or whoever's in administration, they need you to conform to their ideology. It shouldn't be like that. It should be like, hey, listen, I because most of the time when somebody messes up, they know they messed up.
Yeah.
And then they know that they're going to get some reprimand for it, and thus they should. But then they also know that their lieutenant or the person that's over them at that time is going to, you know what? Hey, listen, there's consequences to what you did, but hey, listen, I'm gonna pat you on the back. I'm gonna give you a hug. I'm gonna tell you,
Still on the team.
you're still on the team.
We're good.
Yeah, and we're good, and that's going to build up somebody better than to say, hey, this is going on your personal record,
Yeah.
or and.
But that's why we got to remind. We need the older guys to keep coming to the station and helping us. You guys, the Who's need to be a part of the team. 100%.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you.
They have, because if not, we're gonna forget. I don't know if we'll forget. You know what I'm trying to say? Like,
well, I think it's a two-way street. You know what? Last time I've shown up at the station a couple times to see my old crew or whatever, and the fact of the matter is like, hey, good to see you, glad to see you. We got this busy work we got to go get done, and we can give you 2 minutes or whatever. It's like, if somebody shows up at the station, they should, hey, listen, what's what's valuable right now is that guy he put in 9,000, what is it?
9,125.
25,
I believe.
He put in a 25-year career. Now, was he the best at it? Probably not. But does he maybe have that nugget? Just sit down. Does he have that nugget, that little bit of information, that because every scene that we know is different. Every scene, and what somebody might pull, the questions let's get a pot of coffee. Let's have that discussion. And this, and the
sometimes it doesn't have to even be a teaching moment. It can just be the fact that
I don't
literally came and sat down.
I don't even think a lot of times these older guys, they don't even view it as a teaching. They're just telling stories. And the people that are listening to the stories, they're gonna, you don't know what nugget they're gonna pull out of you. It's like, ooh, hey, listen, that's or they'll ask you to, maybe can you expand on that, or can you go deeper into that, or what was how did you feel after that? I mean, were you emotionally okay, or how did you deal with that? Or what is your avenue of dealing with stress or with anxiety, or or if I come back to the station, even like, how do you go back to sleep?
That's another point too. Like, I just thought of it. You realize that a lot of the older guys probably it was never okay to even talk about it, number one. So in a weird way, coming back to the station might be more beneficial to them than it is to us sitting at the station. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe reeling them back into the team, saying, hey, come back here, have lunch, let's have some coffee, let's tell some stories, be part of the team, can help them understand and maybe realize what they were dealing with, or what they are, or what they maybe never wanted to recognize that they were dealing with, or, because for as long as we've had cars, we've been having car accidents.
Right.
For as long as we've had guns, we've been having suicides, and, babies drowned, because since we've invented water, people have been drowning in them. So it's not like the older generation never saw these things. It's just now we're talking about it more, and it's a little more okay, but then, some people make fun of you, but it's okay.
And a lot of times the older guys, and it's just a natural progression, because we have better equipment now, or we have more advanced equipment now. And the other guys, they had to adapt, and sometimes something's going to fail, or something's, hey, listen, I might tell of an incident where I had to, a hose bust or burst. It's like, well, what'd you do? Right. And so they might hear that, and it might not mean anything until they get into that situation. And then, like, they have that already in the back of their heads, like, well, this is how Lieutenant so-and-so, whoever got out of that situation, I'm going to try that, and it's invaluable information that these guys, like I said, one of the guys that had most influence is Byron Terry, because he was that leader that I wanted to follow, that I wanted to be like. It was like, because he never wanted to be in that position. He just wanted to make sure that everybody was treated fairly, everybody was valued. You had a value. You were worth something. everybody was unique. We weren't robots. We weren't programmed to just, we were allowed to be individuals. We were allowed to be characters. We were allowed to pick on people. We were allowed to, throw a smoke bomb in the bathroom and close the door, and then,
Yeah.
look, and then I remember we did that at old Station 5, and the battalion chief at the time, his name was Paul Waters. He came by and it looked like the Station 5 was on fire because it was just smoke was bellying out but that was just an old time memory that I had. But these are the things that I remember. It was like, and these are the things the funny things people want to hear about these things. Hey, do you remember that time? And what we're joking around with,
Yeah.
and I have more of those stories from the first part of my career than I do at the end of my career.
Really?
Because it was taboo. It almost got to be taboo where you can, practical jokes, or it was, and I might get, might be a bad thing to say, but people's feelings were getting hurt.
Well,
and I'm not saying, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I see retirement coming very quickly on the horizon, and it's weird since we started this and we talk more about it, and I just realized it's such a weird thing when you realize you're the old guy, you realize you've kind of been around a little bit and you're not the first string anymore, and I don't know, it's such a weird thing. And I think as long as we're talking about it, and most of the time I'm talking and I have no idea what I'm saying, where I'm going with this, it's how I've been living my life. But it, for some reason, always just feels better just having a conversation. So I have to assume that when I'm 10 years into retirement and I come sit down at the table and have lunch and a pot of coffee with with the guys, it's going to be probably more fun for me than them. And it's going to feel good to go in and just tell stories and laugh and maybe
it should be
ventilate that room a little bit, because sometimes you don't really know why, or sometimes you don't know what you're thinking or feeling until it kind of comes out. And then you're like, oh, I guess that was weighing me down a little bit, and a lot of it just comes, it's stupid. It's conversation. It's ventilating the room. And it was your son that, should we say that? Well, we did.
We did. You just did, yeah. So he kind of
initiated he okayed it at the very beginning, a year and a half, 2 years ago. Danny was the one that made that comment about, the room filling up with smoke. It's getting harder to breathe. What if talking is just that stupid, is a way of ventilating that room? It's such. So the old guys, we can't just send them out without an axe and just say, have a great day. And then you go 25, 30 years retired, and who knows what's festering over there. Come back and have a pot of coffee. And for some reason, you guys don't instinctively want to come back.
Yeah, I mean,
you have to make an effort.
I can't. Well, I can't talk for everybody. It's just my own. I mean, but a lot of times it feels awkward. I'm just speaking for it feels like.
Are we making it awkward, or is that because we haven't produced an environment to where you just want to come back, or people? This feels like a bullet point we should highlight somehow. Why is it awkward, and what can we do to try to fix that?
Great question. That's a good question.
If you're listening at home, write that down. And because I think we're hitting it. Because in 3 years I'll be there, and Troy, anybody who knows Troy knows that he's not a sensitive, emotional guy, and when he says something, you gotta kind of write it down. You can take it to the bank. And when you said that you were nervous to come back to the station on day one when we were rolling this out, when you said that, I'm like, holy shit. Troy doesn't just say things. I say a lot of dumb things, just sometimes just for a laugh. But
my wife says I say a lot of dumb things.
But Don.
Hey, Don.
I love what you've done to his beard, though, keeping it short and neat. No, there's something there, and I don't know exactly what it is, but it needs to be kind of work done. Because we need Byron Terry to come by for lunch. We need
Sean Chandler.
Sean Chandler is a legend in the Southeast. We need, we need these people.
And and I can just speak for myself, but like when Danny Little, if he's ever showed up at the station, I was adamant. We're quitting what we're doing, and Danny's got unfeathered time, and he's got. I mean, we're going to sit down. We're going to enjoy Danny Little at this time, and he had a lot of great things to say, and I have a lot of great memories of having worked with him. But I think my younger guys that were under me at the station, they can hear me and my stories, and a lot of times that becomes just like a water on a duck's back. But when Danny Little comes in and you say, hey, this is, or Harmon Hale, how about that guy? That guy scared the crap out of me. But I mean, I had so much respect for him. And these guys that just come in and it's like, hey, listen, thank you for showing up. Now, can you talk to my guys? Can you? And when you can do something like that, then your crew or the people at the station are going to benefit from it, and that retired guy is going to benefit because he's going to feel value.
Is it because you don't feel like you're going to add anything?
No, I feel like there's no time. Yeah, it's like, hey, listen, we can give you 5, but we have this.
So should we? Okay, write this down if you're listening at home. Should we be sending out invites to come have lunch? Like actually scheduling a lunch?
I think it's both. I think we can have hey, listen, come by the station and have a lunch, but then a lot of times with that you don't have that one-on-one interaction because hey, listen, you got like 27 or 10 or whatever retired guys showing up at the station. Well, what happens with that is retired guys sit around talking to retired guys, and then the other guys sit. But if you just have one guy show up, and he sits around with your crew, so I think a lot of times we think that we learn and grow more in numbers, but we don't. It's that intimate, that small intimate group. It's like when one guy has a one-on-one with 3 or 4 guys, and there's a benefit because that guy, he's feeling the value. He's like, hey, listen, these guys actually want to hear what I have to say, or they actually want to know some of my experiences, and it could be, from both sides. It's like, hey, is there anything that I can help you? What are you guys going through, or what kind of questions you got? And you'd be surprised. I think the number of questions or what these younger guys have that was like, whoa, that's kind of deep.
The younger guys are not going to ask questions. Number one,
well, because but I think once they get more comfortable with it, they will open up and
they will when questions. They see us change the environment that we're working on changing the environment of. For the first 6 months, if they just see the people having conversations, they'll know, oh, it's okay to have. Or to ask a question, or to go, hey, and it's also our responsibility, like we've talked about, to turn around and go, hey, whose first call might that have been, and then to start that conversation. Some of it falls on us and you as a lieutenant back in the day to go, let's make sure my guys are okay. But the retired guys need to come back.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think it's more than just. Just a dinner here or a breakfast here, and I'm not saying there's no value in that. I think there is, but it's like, hey, listen, if here we get back to the guidelines and policies, but if a retired guy, the lieutenant should have the authority or the hey, listen, and he should be able to say, you know what, I know that we had our workout or we're required, but this is something that I think can be more valuable because. We can go do those pre-fire plans another day. We can go do these other things. But is Sam Kirby going to walk in this door any other day? I don't think so. So let's take advantage of what we have. Take advantage of the situation, and that's again, it's going to be twofold. Those guys that once they see that they have some value, or they see that they're important, they're going to want to show up for lunch, and that's the way it used to be. Daniel Little used to pop in all the time. I keep using him, but. And other guys used to pop in here and there, and we'd stop what we're doing. If we're mopping the floor, well, the floor can be mopped in different, it doesn't have to be, it's not going anywhere. But we're, even right now, we see that, we're losing some of these retired guys, just because they're aging out or, they're passing away and all that experience and all that knowledge is going with them. And I just think that we can do better.
100%.
Get rid of that 1-800 ratting your buddy out.
That's got to go, obviously. I don't know whose idea that was. Sounds like no opinion. No, yeah, never mind. But yeah, I think the brotherhood is built on
Trust,
trust. Brotherhood is built on
forgiveness.
It's built on the backs of the men and women who have done it, who have been around, the salty guys, the old grizzly graybeards, the guys that have these old stories, or and then the younger guys will come in and they want to. We got to get back to listening to these people and being a part of. Like, I want to continue that. I want to help carry on that tradition of being proud and taking pride in the truck and the city, and getting kicking ass and taking names and being because you lose a little bit of that pride when you're too worried about getting ratted out for wearing your flip-flops in the station. Or
does that really matter?
Because someday you're going to be a salty fireman, and I'm you don't want to be a disgruntled one. I want to be able to come back and have a positive spin and continue the third tier, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
But
it's still evolving.
It's evolving. Everything's evolving. And there's really no answers, but
I don't know that you're evolving. I think you're going backwards there, vegan man.
Yeah. You eat one black bean. You build 100 bridges, you're a bridge builder. No, it's I think there's a little bit of becoming a who is natural. It's just the natural progression of life. You fill the seat, and then how quickly we see the next shift, the next tour comes down the road, and then there's just somebody else sitting in that seat. And then before you know it, it's been 6 months to a year and you're gone. And then eventually someone goes, who? When you say Troy Seibel, and then you're like, well, how does this happen? Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's natural, obviously, but when you take a look at it and you realize how little the 9,125 and beyond guys and girls are involved, it's just like you disappear,
and I think another thing that's important that could be brought up is like, not just with the young guys, but I think I hear and see a lot of times with the 15 to 20 year old, or been there for 15 to 20 years, or getting really close to retirement. They had these questions like, well, what are you going to do when you retire? What's out there when we retire? What did you do? How are you feeling? How did you, what do you think about retirement? How did you feel in that time? Too. What are you doing with yourself? It's like, I know nothing else but coming here in with my reality. I knew nothing else but going to work every third day. Right. So now that I'm not doing that, what are you doing with that time? What are you doing with, how are you feeling it, or how are you doing with being away from what you've known, for 25 years of life? How are you doing with losing part of that family aspect,
that's brought up a lot.
Yeah. And so that's, I think that's valuable information too, that we could be, we could be feeding into these people, because not only do the first year to 10-year guys have these questions or can value from the experience, but also, the retired guys, they have experience from the day they walked out the door to where they are.
You know what you are? You're a senior guy to a senior guy.
Yeah,
you're a retired guy who can help me as a senior guy get ready to retire and move into.
Well, that's a stretch, but other people, maybe not you.
No, I'm serious. Yeah. You're a senior guy, so you're a senior guy to a senior guy. So we need you to come have lunch, because I have questions about, my pension, or I have questions about, what did you do with this? How did you convert this and that? There's guys that have questions that are in their last 3 to 4 years that probably have a lot of questions for you.
And nobody can answer them unless you're down that road, yeah. Right? So I mean, you can retire from GE, but that's not retiring from the fire department. That's retire. It's like you were on the same schedule. It's like, and is there anything? Do you have any regrets, or would you have done anything different? And these are like, so I can, if I have the opportunity to keep somebody from going down a path that it was definitely a wrong path to go down.
I have regrets,
and they don't have to stumble down. But see, if we have the ability to talk to, so they don't have to go through what you go through, if we can save that person from going through that, or a better way to deal with that, I mean, I think that we can do such a better job.
I know.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
That's fine.
That's really all we're trying to do.
Yeah.
It's not, yeah. Like I'm 3:00 in the morning when you get a call for interstate bridge jumper. Don't take the refuge. Learn that the hard way. Boy, that's a regret. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't go through the refuge. I knew it was wrong.
Don't put flour in Daniel's bed.
Don't put flour in Daniel's bed.
Just don't do it. It
not
doesn't go well for you.
Was it Casey Fogg that choked you out?
Yeah, okay. Don't get into a fight.
Casey Fogg, how's it going? I know you're listening. Actually been having some laughs at your expense in the last day or two, Troy and I. And thank you for the picture, by the way. You texted me last night. You know which one you're talking about, or I'm talking about. But yeah, don't. Speaking of Casey Fogg, I remember when we were I was in recruit school, 2004. Casey Fogg was down leaning against the drill building after a drill. And I don't remember who it was, but somebody pulled several of us aside who were in class and said, "Hey, you see that guy right there?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "Whatever you do, do not fuck with that guy. He will murder you. He's the strong and he will murder you." And that was good advice. And that was nearly 22 years ago. Casey Fogg. Casey Fogg will murder you.
Yeah. And so
great guy.
We need to make sure he's not a who.
We need to bring Casey Fogg back in and let him tell some stories. And I think we're going to do that. I think Casey, I'm going to reach out to you. Yeah. Casey's another great one. Let's get Casey in there and tell some jokes. He has some knowledge.
Okay, yeah. And,
Sean Chandler, like you said earlier.
Sean Chandler, Byron Terry,
Greg Hellerly. Jesus.
He's, that guy is just, I mean, he amplifies, whatever that word is, But,
yeah.
He's what a lieutenant, him, Byron Terry, like Sam Kirby, Daryl Jones. I mean, I can name up, these are the guys that I grew up with in my department that had influence on me. Tony McAbee was, if you got by his language, that guy, he was so knowledgeable, he was so smart and he did so much stuff behind the scenes for you that you never even realized till years later. It's like, Tony did that for me. Wow. And these guys, I don't think, not necessarily me, but I don't think the generation of people that are coming up right now should not sit down with the Byron Terry or bring in Sean Chandler.
That's what we're talking about.
What Sean Chandler and the Who's?
Sean, that sounds
we should have like a thing, like a breakfast or something. Come meet Sean Chandler and the Who's, and everybody else just show
bunch
up.
Of Who's.
Yeah, a bunch of Who's, and everybody else that's not his name is Sean Chandler is just a Who.
I think we know for a fact that getting more involved, not only are for the men and women who are currently working, but the retirees, the involvement has to increase. I think I'm pretty much set on almost writing that on the wall. Like involvement needs to improve because anytime you can get retired and currently working people together, I think it's good. It's usually a good time. I think we're always venting. We're always learning. We're always the camaraderie, the brotherhood, hey, you doing okay? What do you need? I think it makes us more open to being there for each other because sometimes, we all have personal lives and families. Sometimes you need to lean on each other. And I know for a fact that you and I would do the same thing. If the phone rang right now and somebody needed something, we'd go help. That's brotherhood. Well, it doesn't need to end when you retire from the fire department.
Or separate.
And
what I mean by that is separate is like, retired guys will call retired guys and floor guys will call floor guys, so, but why don't we just, cross that divide, I guess, there's like a little chasm there, it's like, let's build that bridge back. Let's, I
guess I'm realizing that I retire in 3 years, but my job is not done. See what I'm saying? And I think, I'm calling you out a little bit too. Your job's not done. And then with Danny, your son, he's got 20 years to go.
Don't embarrass me. Dad, don't embarrass me.
You got any embarrassing stories about Danny?
Well, I'm not going to tell you, but he's like, don't say anything that's going to get me in trouble. It's like, all right. It's like, That's what my wife said too. You better not get Shane or Daddy in trouble when you go in there.
Well, I'm just glad she made you shave because
Yeah, big boy.
3 years I'm going to grow a beard and it's going to be twice as long as Troy's because he hates losing at everything. But I will have a longer beard than Troy. So until then, I will be vegan boy. No, it's good. I think it's good to have a conversation. I hope this sparks more conversations with people. Like, why don't I go back? Why maybe I should come by, or maybe, maybe we need to do a better job of reaching out. I want to encourage the retired guys and girls to reach in. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
a pot of coffee can go a long way.
Yeah. But I think like without what you're doing, we would never have this conversation. A lot of times, and a lot of this would just be, washed over and looked over. It would, there's nothing's going to, it's just, we'll stay with the norm. We'll stay with how it is. We'll stay with what we're doing and nothing's going to, but so the conversation part of it. And I think there's out in viewer land, there's probably a lot smarter people than you and I that can come up with or have great ideas.
I sure the hell hope so.
Yeah.
Because if this is peaking in this room, we're in trouble.
We're in big trouble.
I don't know. Please don't think I have any of this figured out. I don't have anything in life figured out. I've been shooting from the hip for 48 years, but I mentioned this earlier where I said a lot of CIVing goes on. It's not in a chat, or on Facebook or in a comment on a video. It's always this one-on-one. It's always this, you might pass somebody and for 5 minutes, you have this one-on-one conversation that's not on the internet, it's not recorded. There's no evidence of it, but it was two people having a conversation. And then those are those little things almost every day.
And it leaves an impact.
That leaves an impact because, sometimes I really don't want to make eye contact with it. And I'm like, I just want to be lazy and take a nap, watch Teen Mom 2 reunion. And people are like, hey, but then when you get those little reminders of those one-on-one things that no one will ever hear about or know about, but it's just, that person's leaving in a better place and they're going out, and it makes me go, okay, this is worth talking about. And so, we're sitting here with a retired guy. We got to do a better job. We're admitting we got to do a better job. They have to do a better job of coming in. We got to do a better job of reaching out. You don't have to come to the station and teach me anything. I just want to be a part of your life. I want you to be a part of the station. I want you to be proud of being a retired Decatur Fire. That pride that comes with the brotherhood of being like, well, this is my team. And, and then having these young kids listening to you tell funny stories about when we hung your bed in the rafters, which we may not get away with anymore now, but he's listening, and he's, and he wants to carry on that tradition of like pride. And it's just not a time for you to go away unless you're Casey Fogg. We're scared to death.
Yeah. I think where it falls back on me or the retired guys, if we can change the culture, if we can change the situation, if we can change the mindset, I guess, a little way, that what about if we made it so that the only way that I become a who is if I did it to myself, right? If I did it to myself, the only way I'd become a who.
If you become a who, though, I feel like 50% of the blame is on me.
Not if what I'm saying. If we can change it, so to make it where we're inviting. We're going to sit down with you. We're going to have conversations with you. We're going to show that you have value, that you have importance when even though that you're not employed with the city anymore, you still are a part of the team. You're still part of this. So that if you make that choice to totally
distance yourself,
or just, hey, I want nothing to do with this, then it's your own fault that you become a who.
And now, of course, obviously you can't have everyone involved. Not everyone's going to want to be involved, just like not everybody wants to have a conversation. It's as simple. But if the people that we mentioned today, which are all solid, if those 5 or 6 were involved, could you imagine where our department would be if those guys were actively involved? I mean, actively involved.
Why, have these guys in for, have the lieutenants say, call out to some guys and say, hey, listen, will you come and have breakfast with my crew? We want to sit down with you. We'll give you the morning. And we want to sit down with you and just have the lieutenant able to call up and say, you know what, I value you and I think you can come in. It's like, get Chandler in. He can talk, he can ramble, he can say more stuff without saying anything than anybody. It's like, and he can just, and he's got stories and he's got experience, and he says it in such a way he'll keep you laughing, but he's going to give you those nuggets that are invaluable. Call back Greg Heatherly, there's something Byron Terry. I can't say enough about that guy and what the impact he's had on my career and just as in life lessons that he's given me.
So this is the first step. It's out there, becoming who. It's a topic for discussion. Obviously, it's not over. And this is just the beginning of...
We could have a reunion.
9,000.
Sean Chandler and the Who's.
Sean Chandler and the Who's. It could be a really bad... It sounds like a really bad cover band.
Well, yeah, if he was leading it.
It's all part of the grand scheme, the big old picture, and trying to just shed some light on it.
You know what? Get Brent Fitcher to come in.
Danny Engel.
Danny Engel. And we can go on.
Tim James. Brett Cole.
These guys there's so much experience. So
Martin Cagle.
Yeah.
He's probably got hair down to his butt by now. Is he still mad and still growing it out, or did he finally cut it?
That I'm not sure.
Okay, see?
Harmon
Hale.
All these guys that are just they're wanting. I think they're yearning for that. They may not even know it, but when they see that, hey, listen, I still have a value. I still have impact. I still can make a difference, even though I'm not on the payroll, I guess, or that number with the city 2043. That's what my number was. These guys are, because if, like I said, the old guys that had the character, if Fishhead or Sam Kirby or Daryl Jones, call him in. It's like, these guys are just they have so much to offer. They're so intelligent, and and they have wisdom. And you only get wisdom through experience and through age, right? You just don't all of a sudden bang read a textbook. You got wisdom.
There's no 22-year-old walking around with wisdom.
No.
They may be full of piss and vinegar and testosterone and and they're workers.
Oh, they can do what I got up here. They're the ones that can do it.
They're the ones carrying the dummy.
I think I can, but no.
Yeah. On the Mayday drill that we did last week, they're the muscle, that gets shit done.
But these older guys are just like, hey, listen, you got that done, but what if you did it this way? You'd exert that much less.
Someday it'll be their turn to be the old guy with the bad back, bad whatever.
Because I'm looking the way to get it done to make sure that it's done and done properly, but with the least amount of exertion. And these younger guys, just a lot of times they just don't know how to do that. There's so much available out there that I think that we're losing, or we're not capitalizing.
We're not.
We're not. We're not. And just relationships too. Just being relational with people, and that's what
the relationships, but also the one thing that we rarely want to talk about is some of the stress from all the things they did, and that they're still carrying. Sometimes when you get in an environment, maybe you get a little click with somebody and you feel comfortable, and you might let some of that out, or maybe you've been, everybody's got something, and if you help people carry the bags, you help grab a handle on that stuff, and they may not realize it, but when they start coming around the station more and get back on the team, then maybe they can let some of that out that they didn't know, or they didn't want to admit was bothering them, or maybe we can lighten their load. Because if you're never off the team, we're all blue shirts. You're still a blue shirt.
Yeah.
We just got to change the mindset in your head and all of our heads of what we're doing, because we're not playing the game very well. But blue shirts get blue shirts. You're always going to be a retired fireman. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And a mediocre goalie for semi-professional.
Yeah. Hey, but they paid me to play. I got paid to play.
But you're always, when I retire in 3 years, I will always identify as a retired fireman who's a vegan.
And a subpar snowboarder.
No, I think I snowboard better than I play hockey.
Yeah, that's saying a lot.
I don't want to brag, but I have 8 goals this season. No, it's a great start to a great conversation. Appreciate you coming. I don't think you've offended anybody, I'm hoping.
Get rid of the 1-800 rat your buddy.
Get rid of the 1-800 number. Please.
Ease up on those coaching
We don't
forums.
need to.
Like
all it does is creates a hostile environment to where the person that got ratted on for wearing their flip-flops past a certain time of the day or something is going to make them go, you know what? I'm not doing anything anymore. Screw these. It's going to create I don't know. It just, if you have a problem with something I'm doing and you're my lieutenant, he would come up and go, Shimmick, go put your damn boots on. Quit being a dick. I'm like, no problem, Lieutenant.
Yeah.
It's not 6:30. Go put your pants on. No problem. Quick, easy, handled. It doesn't
inside the station.
Inside the station. Yeah. It's not written down. It doesn't affect my pay or my attitude or, and if my attitude starts sucking, my lieutenant should jump up my ass and crawl up it and come down the other side and say, your attitude sucks. Fucking knock it off.
And it goes both ways because I truly believe that when I was a lieutenant, that my crew, if they weren't performing that way, then I should be the one written up, not them. Some battalion chief should not come into my station and supersede my authority and walk past me to write up somebody that his job should be write me up, and then my job is to take care of the problem.
This is where we're going to get off topic with Troy Seibel, which that's don't step on that. Don't touch it because it's itchy.
It could be.
It could be itchy. We'll leave that alone. But the brotherhood has to include the retired guys. 100%. We're going to do a better job. We're going to come up with better ways. If you have ways to improve it, ideas, throw it out there, implement it, whatever. Think about it.
Call them up.
Don't call me. No, I'm kidding.
1-800 Shimmick.
You can call me.
1-800. I got ideas for Shimmick.
You got your department. Look at what you're doing. I don't know.
We want to find a way to get back to unity, right?
Get back to the brotherhood. Get back to blue shirts. Get blue shirts.
Trusting people and honoring that, and knowing and realizing that we're not all the same. We all function a little bit differently, and that's okay because that's what makes us who we are. And let our personalities play out, and let us be individuals instead of robots. Let us be, and let us show, let us have fun. Let us have that release.
We all have different strengths. We all have different weaknesses.
Yeah,
we're all on the team. Absolutely. And I think everybody,
and if we wouldn't be different, then it wouldn't be anything. It wouldn't be a team. It'd just be a bunch of,
Everybody, I think, has something to offer.
Yeah, some people play defense, some play offense. Somebody, some people that back check. Some
people don't need to back check because
they're lazy.
No, I'm saving my energy for bursts when the play needs it, like cutting across the middle for a pass.
We're still waiting for that burst.
I don't want to. Well, I mean, I don't know who you think assisted your goal today, but I know it was me.
You got it in the way.
First off, I made a pretty sweet pass.
Yeah.
But we won't bring that up because Shimmick never back checks and he eats black bean burgers. All right. Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, and thanks for doing what you're doing, and everybody out there, like, just if you have an ideas, there's not a bad idea. The only bad idea is one that's not talked about or not brought up because you don't know how you're going to not affect somebody. You don't know the change that you can make in somebody's life. You don't know the impact. Everybody has value and everybody has their opinions matter, and it should matter, and it should be listened to. And, and then those conversations should be had, and those, and when you do that, you're going to build the bond that is a brotherhood.
The foundation.
You're going to build a brotherhood faster, quicker, and more with more bond, more glue than you would with a division by writing people up and taking the authority away out of the station. And all these things that there's so much room for improvement that we could, and it starts with, I think, a conversation, but also listening. My mom said, she always tell me, and this is not something new, but she goes, "You got 2 ears and one mouth. Listen twice as much and talk less."
You need to call your son and remind him of that.
And to the young guys, listen, and this is something I was brought in with. Your opinion doesn't matter till you've been there for 5 years.
Well,
and I was told that right from the start. Hey, listen, you need to spend some, maybe not 5 years, but you need to listen more than
the first 5 years of your career, and this is my opinion, I think falls on me and everyone else at the station to help you create a good foundation.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing here. We're acknowledging some of our weaknesses and going, look, we've been failing you a little bit on some aspects. It's my job to make sure you're going to be good. And so a lot of that should be you just listening. And a lot of that should be me talking and guiding. My lieutenant and driver, all of us have a role. And now we realize the who's need to come back and become not who's. Not who? Yeah.
Not who.
Not who. You need to be not
Unless you're
who's.
Chandler, you're never a who.
Chandler's not a who.
Chandler's not.
Chandler has people who know. You can be in West Virginia and people are like, yeah, Sean Chandler. Yeah, we all know him. But
he's probably in books. He's probably been written about. He's so.
More than likely.
Yeah.
He's been mentioned somewhere.
Oh,
there's a textbook somewhere.
I don't know that anybody has never had Sean Chandler roll off his tongue. It's just.
Well, all right. Well, thanks for coming. If you're out there, whatever you can add to the story, add it. Be good to each other.
I appreciate you having me.
Appreciate you. Appreciate you scoring on that goal that I made that sweet pass because I got a point for that. So,
yeah.
You went 5-hole, didn't you?
Yeah.
Okay.
And, that's going to be remembered.
That was a pretty sweet pass. That was a sweet pass. All right. Well, I love you. Stay safe. Stay together. Troy, thank you for coming. As always, click like, subscribe, all that jazz. Spotify for all you audio guys. Apple Podcasts. Yeah. I don't know. Share it. Have a conversation. Give somebody a hug. Call somebody you haven't talked to in a while. I don't know. Just be a better person.
Invite somebody to come have breakfast.
And for God's sakes, back check.
Huh. Yeah. There's more hope for me getting invited for breakfast than him back checking.
Back checking's for. I'm not going to back check. All right. Love you guys. Have a good night. Have a good day, whatever it happens to be out there in your world. And we'll see you on the next one. Peace.